Do you feel as though your clutter is literally suffocating you? If so, in today's show, I'm going to be sharing some insights that help you breathe more life into your home. Hi, I'm Vibreen Samuels, and welcome to the Smart Years, a place where baby boomers can reinvent, thrive, and live well into their third act of life. Well, if you're like me, a clutter fiend who's on the road to rehabilitation, then you may be interested in this idea called Swedish Death Cleaning. I came across it about a month ago, and it's a beautiful concept that was introduced by Margarita Magnusson. She's written a book called The Gentle Art of Death Cleaning. And essentially, the premise of it is how can we live with more ease and joy with less excess so that we can enjoy our homes? And then the other side of the coin is how can we be more compassionate and considerate to our loved ones who will then be left with the burden of decluttering our homes? And so, really, it's about how do we take responsibility for dealing with our clutter before we leave this life. As baby boomers, we're closer to the end of our life than at the beginning of our lives. And so for me, I was beginning to get even more overwhelmed with my clutter. And my clutter really is around books and papers primarily, and secondary, clothes, but to a lesser extent. So Margarita has this idea for us to be responsible about the things, the possessions that we have accumulated over the years. And as baby boomers, we've lived at least 6 decades. And from our adult life on, whether you're a married couple that have had children or not married and have children, you've accumulated so many different possessions. And then for those of us who may happen to be single, we equally have accumulated lots of stuff. And as we spin round, we are slowly but surely allowing our stuff to encroach on our lives. So for me, over the last month, I've been even more intentional. So I've done decluttering before in the past. My thing has been books primarily, as I said. And so I've had thousands and thousands of books and have given away thousands and thousands of books. And I still have hundreds of books. And so over the last month or so, I've consciously started to tackle this issue in my life. But where do you start when you're thinking about decluttering, this Swedish death cleaning? So for me, I take an evaluative process. Each book I pick up, I think about my relationship to this book, my attachment to this book. If you're like me, I'm very physical with my books. So I write in them, I highlight on them, I, post questions. So they become an interactive session, really. And I think about when I bought the book, because we buy books for different seasons in our lives. And I'm 60 now. And so, I've bought books at different periods in my life. And I think about what's my attachment with this book? Have I implemented the lessons because I've highlighted so much of this book and I've just really kept it on my bookshelf? If I can honestly say, well, yes, I have actually, then it's time for the book to go. If, on the other hand, I've highlighted and written things in there, but I haven't actually implemented a lot of those things, I think back to the period of when I bought the book, wrote in the book. Am I still in the same emotional season, psychological season, intellectual season, physical season of when I bought that book? If the answer is no, that means that my life has evolved, then it's time for it to go. If, on the other hand, I have a sense of nostalgia attached to the book, I think back to, possibly who gave me the book or, what emotions are evoked when I think about this book. Now, being sentimental, that's fantastic. But has that time passed? Because the concept of what Margarita is teaching through Swedish death cleaning is how can we become more aligned with the present life that we're living, as opposed to always residing in the past, and our possessions can show us that. So if I have, a loose attachment to it, then it goes. And if I don't, then I really consider, I might put that in a pile to review or revisit in about 6 months' time. When it comes to clothes, I'm really good actually about recycling my clothes. I've always been good at that because I tend to buy clothes that suit my body shape as opposed to being in fashion necessarily. But if you happen to be somebody who, every week you're going shopping to buy a new outfit, you'll have hordes and hordes of clothes. Again, the process is, when was the last time you wore it? So for somebody who has a lot of clothes and possibly has never worn them, then you will decide, actually, maybe 6 months, 12 months time, I might give that away, or I might give it away now. For somebody like me who is quite active with recycling, and I possibly buy a handful of clothes per year, is that I can then swap out. If I've bought one for one, then I'll swap out one thing. But what I've consciously decided to do from here on in, now that I'm exercising the muscle of decluttering even more, is that I find that like you might be just wearing 30% of your clothes, but you still fit into the rest of them. So what I'm going to do is, from here on, for the next 12 months, I'm going to actively start wearing all of my clothes. And if in a year's time there's clothes I haven't worn, then I'm going to give them away. And then, just coming back to this last point, think about whether, it's clothes, it's books, it's, DIY stuff, it's equipment in your home, whatever it is. How useful is it for your life where you are now? If you can honestly hold your hands up and think, well, I don't really have any use for this particular item. Can I donate it? Because the idea with our decluttering is that we're downsizing in some way. Can you donate it to family and friends, or can you give that away to a charity shop? So there's some of the practices that I use when I'm evaluating whether to keep something or not. If I'm keeping it, then I'm going to be actively using it. And then I have a pile whereby there's a bit of a question mark. And I will then think about it, revisit it in 6 months' time. So for me, I've got 2 bookcases packed with books, and I also have baskets of books dotted around my home. And it's wonderful, actually, because over the last couple of weekends, I've given away about 60 books, and I'm active in this process. And I want to eventually get to the state or the place whereby, if I had to pack 2 suitcases and leave tomorrow, um, could I just pack 2 suitcases and leave tomorrow and not think about what's left? Or, because I've downsized in a way, it's not going to cause me any trauma or anything like that. So the process of, evaluating, giving it away, or pausing it, revisiting it over 6 months, 12 months, you decide. But I can tell you, as somebody who has been liberated from, the kind of pressure, the kind of indirect pressure, the overwhelm of having too many books and papers in my world, is that it feels great. It's a bit lighter. I also bought something called a folio. So it's this wonderful folder. Let me just open it up for you. I hope you can see this. It's called a folio, and it's a folder that has envelopes per page. And the idea is, I can now start documenting important documents and information, that if anything were to happen to me, then all that information will be contained into one place. And so my loved ones will not be stressed out about, what is this? What could be that? Where would she have put X, Y, or Z? So you might want to buy one. It's a folio. It has envelopes in it, and you can start documenting. I think it takes about 10 to 12 itemed sections. And then you can start documenting, and then you can think, all of my important documents are in one place. Going through this process is fantastic because it brings us into the world, or deepens our relationship with the world, of minimalism. And there are a number of principles of minimalism, but I've chosen 3 because the idea is not to be overwhelmed with information. We're decluttering. And that's the first principle, decluttering. Removing unwanted possessions that we know that we've outlived, they don't serve any purpose, and it's time for them to go. And what this then does is open up the space. It opens up the physical space. So you'll actually have more room in your home. You can see your home through new eyes. And then it lessens the kind of emotional and psychological weight that we carry. And it's like, oh God, I must get to that. I must get to that. By decluttering, and you can just take this in bite-sized pieces. Start with a drawer, start with a handful of books, start going through the garage, for example. And so therefore you're just taking section by section and working through it systematically in a way that you can handle. So decluttering. The second one is about mindfulness. And I'm loving this because I have lived a mindful life at different periods of my life. I was a Buddhist for 12 years, so that was very much a concentrated form of mindfulness. And I still carry on those practices, but now that I'm consciously decluttering, mindfulness is really good because it is showing me my relationship with consumption and consumerism. It's also allowing me to see with more clarity my thoughts and my habits and my patterns. And are they kind of interrupting me? Are they holding me back? Are they getting in my way? So mindfulness allows me to remain present and allows me to remain in a more aligned way so that I can just be more conscious about my possessions, how I relate to them, and do I really need them? And then it obviously, as you declutter, you become more mindful, you become more aligned, you open up your world to new possibilities, things that really sit with you. And that's not only about things, it could also be relationships that were stagnant and stale and that you've both moved on from each other, or friendships, or it opens up the possibility of meeting new people, getting into new hobbies. So, for example, at the weekend just gone, I was at this fantastic soiree and, the sun was shining, met new people, and it was wonderful. We were all in that energy of alignment and flow, and it was fabulous. And we're going to be meeting up at different points over the summer. So mindfulness allows you to consciously think about what is in your world. Does it still have a place in your world? Can you donate it out of your world to open up for new vistas, new experiences? And then the third one is about effortlessness. Living in a way that brings more simplicity into our worlds. For me, I'm really enjoying this, even though I still got a long way to go with my decluttering. But the whole idea is, how do I continue to live with simplicity, with effortlessness, which means that I'm creating pockets of space that allows my life to breathe in a particular way, that allows me to be even more present. So I'd love to hear, what's your relationship like with clutter? Are you going to hold your hand up and confess like I have? Are you actively working on it? Do you have a system that you already use? I'd love to hear. Put your comments in the comment box below, and please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. And I will see you again on the next show. Bye bye.